to be stereotyped. You're a young girl with a small skirt, of course you're going to be stereotyped. But how do you beat that stereotype even before you prepare for it? I always say when I'm going for a government meeting, and everyone who works for government here, I don't wear the same clothes I wear when I'm going for a Coca-Cola meeting because the culture is different. So I get ready for those people to look at me and listen to me without them stereotyping me. Because I can't change the mind of everyone, but I can change what they see when they first see me. But if I'm going to my Coke client who's young and funky, it's different. But if I'm going to go to meet this person who I already know is an older person or traditional, I'm going to set myself up for success, not failure, just because I'll be like, but I don't care what people wear. It's my life. No. So how do you actually beat the stereotype? The only way is forward. I think we're in a space in Kenya and in the world today where we are set to only be forward. Like, as a woman, as a young woman, you can only go forward. It's only the fact that how do you ensure you raise your hand? And raising your hand is very important. And I know sometimes, you feel like, but I can't. But if you don't raise your hand, you'll never be heard. And you could have something important to say, but because you didn't say or you didn't offer yourself for a job or a promotion. So we just discussed, men will offer themselves for a promotion when they are only 50% qualified. You know that? Women will be 155 qualified before they think of offering. You just be like, I have to be best. I have to have done this and a master's and a degree. And the guy with a diploma will walk in and get the job. And it's that kind of confidence that's about raising your hand as a woman. Be confident in what you have, enough to say, I know I can do this. Because if you're not, then the next person will not believe in you, right? They'll be like, maybe she can't do it. And we just discussed, and someone said, but now in Kenya today, there are more women in marketing than there are men. And we discussed the fact that now it's almost like the shift, and we'll chat about it in the panel. But there's a bit of a shift, and I think we can explore what that shift looks like. And yes, you are qualified, By the time I was a GM in JWT, Scanard, and it was 4 agencies in Tanzania, I hadn't finished my degree. I finished it on that job. So yes, you're qualified. It's just that you don't believe you're qualified, right? So I actually did that job for a year before I actually finished my degree. And I worked until I was a GM with 5, 6 diplomas in different things, but without a degree. And I just used to be like, I don't feel I have the time, can I finish? Then I finally finished. But imagine you're qualified, you just think you're not qualified, right? It's the only way, right? The only way to win as a woman it's to raise your hand. If you do not raise your hand, then we cannot blame the system for not giving us the opportunities if we don't raise our hands, right? And trust I always say when I was a very little girl, and I did a story about being 16, I used to want to be a designer for clothes, and I wanted to be a lawyer. She's been my friend for the longest, she possibly knows. But wow, coming to think about it, I can't draw. So what did I want to design? Like, I can't even draw a car, But also, I don't think I can be a lawyer. This lawyer job in Nairobi doesn't work for me. But these are the things I wanted to be. But imagine yourself as a 16-year-old person who felt they could kick the world. Sorry, I almost cursed. Who felt they could actually do their best in the world. Just imagine yourself as that 16-year-old girl. And then now you're a 30-something or 20-something and you're scared. But you were not scared then. And I always say, always ask yourself, what would my younger self do? Would my younger self just pick up and go? Possibly they would. Would my younger self just say, So I saw a very young girl, she's 17, and she's come, and I saw her there. And once she was an intern in my office, and she spoke in a meeting with a CEO, because she's just like, it's my point of view. Yet an older person would be like, am I sure? So raise your hand, be heard, trust that little girl, little boy that was inside you, that always knew and wanted to try, and be that person today. Create a space for women to thrive. This is something I'm extremely passionate about. You know, we must as women, I don't even think we don't have an excuse. If you're a woman leader, it's your job. It's our jobs to create spaces where women feel safe, where they feel they can be heard, where they feel they can actually be women in the office. I always say in my office, you have a child, come in at 10, so you can go home early because you have a child, right? All you need to do is deliver on the job. Now, if we create spaces that women already do not want to work in, we are already curtailing them before they even start. You know, we must champion men to do the same. If you're not challenging the guy in your office who disrespects women, you haven't done your part. You know, I'm very big with that. It doesn't always go well. But I'm just like, but you can't say that. That was disrespectful. And the thing you'll find with most men, they struggle. For them, they just felt like it was another quip, just another conversation. But for a younger woman, it meant something very different. So how do we become champions to ensure men actually understand and champion the same, creating a safe space for women? We must demand it of ourselves at all levels. You know, whether you're a marketing executive, whether you're a marketing director, at each of the levels, there's a role for every woman to play to ensure the system works. Because ever found those organizations where they have a fantastic boss, then there's a junior chick who is horrible to all women, and you can then not blame the boss because this person who has two people reporting to them, they've decided, I am the end, and you two people, you shall see me. So at all levels, it's not a leadership discussion, it's at all levels, how do we actually champion for this? Lastly, women influence in marketing. I went to Cannes this year and I was really challenged by how much work brands have done with purpose and with purpose for women. And so there's L'Oreal and some brands, L'Oreal, I think Louis Vuitton, some brands, they've created this council for women where it's directors of marketing women, they meet annually and they challenge each other on what kind of work they need to do as women marketers. And sitting here, you know, maybe we should start the championing from this table, right? We already have everyone who could do it. But one is products. How do we start developing products that say we understand the stereotypes women have to go through? Do you know there are products, if you're married, you can't buy still in Kenya, right? You can't still buy those products because your husband has to co-sign for you. How in today's world? Like, what's that, right? How do we start creating products that actually empower and speak to women in our... Give me a minute. Yes, we are back to business. Brands and communication. How do we create brands and build brands that respect women? You know, how do we create communication that is not stereotyped? You know, and I went for a workshop for stereotype, and even I was like, oh, I didn't know that was stereotype. But the way we show women in advertising and in our communication is the way the world is gonna see women. So if we show ads of women looking pretty and looking for sponsors, but you want to walk into a room full of men and be respected, wow, but you just put the ad out. It's counterproductive, right? So we have to start creating communication that shows women in equal roles, as opposed to, and not just once a year when it's Women's Day to celebrate women, but all the time. And it's small nuances that start driving the culture for other people. So as a woman in marketing, you hold so much power in what we shape the world to be, because our world is shaped a lot by what we see. And if you wake up today, you can imagine how many ads you saw between morning and evening, on radio, on TV, on digital. So and you know, I think we're also in that era where we are calling out brands for when they actually disrespect women, and we are like, you can't be that brand that does that. But how do we start being that brand that actually champions the change as a marketer, as opposed to waiting to see someone else champion the change? Influencing culture. You know, if you're an artist, we follow culture depending on what we see on art, in communication, and in TV content. I think I saw some people from TV here. I saw Simalo, I did. And her. It's such a big role that the media has, and everyone in marketing has a role in media, because media runs because of your money. So if we demand better from media as marketers, then the shift starts happening. If you want your ad to run in content that is disrespectful to women and you're okay with it, but you can't demand better tomorrow. So we can't stand on the side and say, hey world, respect me, but then in the back we're still creating spaces that disrespect women. So how do we start influencing culture? By demanding the same from our partners. I remember once, and I won't say the radio station, but they ran a mention, and it was very and I called them and I said, but I would not know. In fact, I need you to figure out how to fix this problem and this person before you cannot be disrespectful to women and imagine a brand is going to sit in that space, because then your brand looks like it's actually pushing that agenda. So how do we demand more from ourselves and from our partners to get there? So the next time, maybe I'm setting up myself, I give you a media plan and you're a client, and the media plan puts you in a space that actually stereotypes or disrespects women. You have to start asking the difficult questions. We all have to start asking the difficult questions, because unless we try to push the shift, it's not going to happen. So finishing, lean in, be there for others to lean in, and remember, it is all about failing forward. I always say, be the person that someone feels safe to come talk to in your office. Be that person where someone wants to say, I'm struggling, I'm going to see that person, and be open enough that even the junior person in your office can actually come and talk to you. Failing forward means, I don't think there's a map for this thing, right? We are doing it now global. Everyone is doing this women thing now. So the map isn't drawn. There are no rules and regulations yet. You will fail, you will do something, and you're like, oh, that didn't work. Fail forward. Learn quickly and move on to the next thing. Lastly, we have the power to shape the world in which we live in. We cannot complain about the world in which we live in, because we have the power to shape it. I'm still questioning the editor that put Sonko on TV yesterday, and why they would imagine that was the right conversation to do. And for me, what was most scary is the day before when Ken died, we all were like, fantastic, amazing guy. And the next moment, we just cut him to pieces. And if we are not holding, I looked at the headlines today in the newspaper, all of them tore the guy down, the same guy they spoke very well about the day he died. But if we are not holding each other accountable, that's what happens, right? Because we have come to accept it. I'm sure you bought the paper today. Imagine if we didn't buy any paper because we were not comfortable with what they were reporting. So we've come to kind of accept it as not just everyone sitting here, but just as a people. We accept it, so it happens, and it kind of just moves on. But now imagine the young person who's 16, 17, 18, who's just really very impressionable. So for them, it's just like, that's the right thing to do. So the day they are an editor, they will put it up, because that felt like the right thing to do. And I can bet you, none of the newspapers will apologize tomorrow, because it feels like the right thing to do. So how do we take the power we have as marketers? I always say, if you count all the top 10 companies in Kenya by spend, they are all led by women head of marketing, all of them. So imagine the power of those women to decide what our world looks like, and the power of the spend sitting on this first table to actually influence what our world looks like. And that's what we must do. Wherever you work as a marketing person, how do you start making those choices and demanding them more from all of us? She gave me 5 minutes, but I'm done. Thank you for coming. We will go into the panel. So I'll invite 3T, and sorry, I will take this moment before 3T comes to do a personal, so Mediacom partners with Strathmore, and 3T is a Strathmore, works at Strathmore. She's a professor. No? One of those, she'll tell you. But she also leads the marketing club. And the marketing club in Strathmore do quite good work. Actually, if you were at MSK last year, some of the kids won for their work. And we help them not just in taking on their interns at our office, but in helping them organize an event for marketers in October. And I will share the note to Victor, and Victor shall post it for everyone who came today. They have an event in October. What happens, we give them a brief. They work on that brief.